In a world that measures worth by likes, followers, and social circles, there stands a rare kind of man, one who walks alone, not out of necessity, but by choice. This is the story of a man who has found true strength in solitude. A man who understands that real security isn't found in the crowd, but within himself. What makes him different? He's discovered that true peace, true freedom, comes not from the validation of others, but from knowing his own worth. This is what it means to be unshakable. When we talk about a man who doesn't need a crowd around him, who finds strength without leaning on friendships, we're talking about a man who has learned to stand on his own. A man without friends is one who has discovered a certain kind of strength and peace within himself that many may never experience. This isn't about being cold, distant, or a loner for the sake of it. It's about someone who's secure in who he is. Someone who has learned to walk his path without needing others to validate or reassure him. In a world where everyone is shouting to be seen, to be heard, to be liked, a man who can stand apart is rare. Most people fear silence. They fear solitude, afraid of their own company, because they're terrified of what they might find. But a man who's at ease with himself is different. He spent time in that silence. He's looked in the mirror and faced what he sees, the good and the bad. He's asked himself the hard questions, the ones most avoid. And he's found his answers not from seeking approval, but from searching deep within himself. He's secure because he doesn't search outward for things that can only be found inside. A man who stands alone at peace with it understands the strength in solitude. When you're alone, just you and your thoughts, there's no mask, no pretending, no need to perform for anyone. You're stripped down to who you truly are, and that's where the power lies. A man secure in himself doesn't need people around to define him. He doesn't seek constant validation, approval, or applause. He's not waiting for someone else to give him permission to feel worthy. And because he isn't caught up in trying to fit in or be liked, he's free to be his true self, to grow in his own way, to develop an unshakable confidence in who he is. Friendships can be beautiful, don't get me wrong. There is value in companionship, in sharing moments and laughter. But a secure man understands that his worth isn't measured by the number of friends he has or his popularity. He isn't keeping score. He focuses on the bigger picture of purpose, unswayed by social dynamics or the pressure to conform just to keep others around. He's committed to his growth, his vision, and his principles. If others come along who align with that, great. But he doesn't seek approval or try to surround himself with people just to avoid being alone. He knows that true peace can't be measured by the number of people in his corner. Solitude is his teacher, his guide. When a man has the courage to sit with himself, he learns truths about who he is that a crowd could never reveal. He understands his fears, his strengths, his weaknesses. And once he's faced those parts of himself, no one can shake him. He doesn't need anyone to fill gaps or mask insecurities. He's worked through them, faced them head on. And that's where his strength lies. It's a strength that comes from within, not from the praise or presence of others. A secure man understands that the wrong friendships can weaken him, relationships with conflicting values, those who disrespect boundaries, or those who bring drama and unnecessary complications. A wise man avoids being caught up in that. He's selective because he values his peace too much to risk it on relationships that don't serve him. Sometimes that means walking a quieter, more solitary path. But that solitude is rich, meaningful, and peaceful. A man like that isn't without empathy or the ability to connect. He connects deeply when he chooses to. But he's not eager to share himself with just anyone. He values his time, energy, and mind and is careful with whom he shares those parts. When he does let someone in, it's because they've shown respect for who he is and what he stands for. He's not interested in shallow connections. He's looking for depth, respect, and authenticity. And if that's not present, he's perfectly content being on his own. Society often tries to tell us that being alone is a flaw, something to be fixed or avoided. But a secure man knows better. He knows that standing alone is sometimes exactly what's needed to grow, to understand his worth, and to build himself from the inside out. When a man truly knows his worth, solitude doesn't scare him. He doesn't need a crowd or to fit any mold. He's confident in his path and comfortable in his skin, making him unshakable. This man stands firm because he understands that true self-respect comes from what he knows when he's alone, not from the noise outside. He's looked himself in the eye during silent moments, challenges, and truths. He's come face to face with who he is, what he's done, and where he's going. Through self-reflection and personal accountability, he's gained a respect for himself that doesn't depend on others' opinions. It's an unshakable confidence, built from within, not from the fleeting approval of those around him. This man has walked through fire and faced tests that few will ever know. He's confronted his weaknesses, regrets, and insecurities, emerging stronger, wiser, and more assured. He doesn't need applause because he knows the work he's done. He doesn't need anyone's validation. He's not seeking praise or admirers. He's past the stage where external validation feels necessary. He's reached a place of peace that only he can define, and that's what makes him secure. In today's world, that's a radical thing. Society pushes the idea that your worth is tied to how many people know your name, how many likes your photos receive, how many are tuned into your life. But this man has stepped away from that. He isn't defined by his social circle, by how many people view him as successful, or how many are interested in his life. His value, his sense of self-worth, comes from what he knows he has accomplished. It's rooted in the strength of his character and the path he's chosen to walk. He understands that popularity doesn't equate to fulfillment. He's secure in the knowledge that true value doesn't fluctuate based on others' opinions. It's something you carry quietly with a steady heart. He's content in the quiet moments of his life. Those times when it's just him, the silence in his thoughts. He's not uncomfortable with his own company because he's made peace with himself. He's resolved his inner conflicts, faced his past, acknowledged his mistakes, and learned from them. So when he's alone, he is truly alone. No ghosts of regret, no unfinished business haunting him. He's at ease, knowing he has done his best with the hand he's been dealt. That kind of peace, that kind of contentment, doesn't come from a life filled with people. It comes from a life filled with purpose, integrity, and a commitment to self-growth that goes beyond seeking outside approval. People might not understand this. They see a man without a large social circle, without a crowd around him, and they assume he must be lonely, that he must be missing something. But that perspective says more about them than it does about him. It reveals a mindset that values appearance over substance, perception over truth. A secure man doesn't live for others' understanding. He's not performing for an audience. His life, his choices, his journey, those are his own. And he's content to walk his path without needing others to validate it. He's not avoiding people, he simply doesn't depend on them to define his worth. True strength is quiet. It doesn't need to be on display, on a platform, or noticed. Real strength is like a mountain, firm, unwavering, deeply rooted. It isn't moved by the wind or shaken by storms. It remains steady because it's grounded in something real, something internal. This man has found his strength within, and because of that, he doesn't need to make a show of it. He isn't broadcasting his achievements or trying to impress. He's living in alignment with his values, and that's all the validation he needs. People may see him alone and assume he's lacking something, but solitude for a man like this is not emptiness. It's richness. Solitude offers him space to think clearly, to hear his own voice, to connect with his spirit. In a world full of noise, solitude is a sanctuary, a place to center himself and stay true to who he is. This man has learned that his life doesn't need validation from likes, followers, or applause. He's wise enough to know those things are fleeting. They come and go and have no bearing on the man he is or the impact he has. He knows his value is determined, not by how many people notice him, but by the quality of the life he lives. He's focused on his purpose, his goals, and the legacy he's building. Real success and true fulfillment aren't measured by numbers or recognition. They're measured by the depth of his character, the strength of his convictions, and the way he carries himself through life. It takes courage to live this way, to stand apart, to be comfortable in your own skin without needing others to validate it. This man has that courage. He doesn't fear solitude because he knows that in those quiet moments he finds his true power. He doesn't need to fill his life with people to feel whole. He's already whole. He's already whole. He's not searching for approval because he's already approved of himself. And that kind of security, that kind of strength is rare. Not everyone will understand it, and he's okay with that. He doesn't need to be understood by everyone. He's not living to meet others' expectations. He's living to honor his own values, his own truth. He's secure in knowing he's walking his path with integrity. And that's all the validation he needs. The strength of a man isn't determined by the size of his crowd, but by the size of his character. And this man has built a character that can stand alone. A character that doesn't bend to others' opinions. A character that stays steady, even in solitude, in a world that constantly tries to define us, to push us towards seeking approval, to fit in, to be seen. A man who's content to walk his path alone is a man who's truly free from the need for validation, from the pressure to conform, free from the fear of solitude. He's learned that his worth is something he defines, something he carries within, something that no one can give or take away. And because of that, he's secure, steady, unbreakable. This man doesn't need friends to feel valued. He doesn't need a crowd to feel secure. He has found his value within, and that is a source of strength that cannot be shaken. That is the power of self-respect, the power of true security. He walks his path with quiet strength, unwavering purpose, and a peace that can only come from within. And that is a rare and beautiful thing. This is a man who is truly secure, not because of who surrounds him, but because of who he is when he stands alone. He's not against friendships or connections, not at all. But he knows that friendship isn't a necessity to complete him, it's an enhancement. A choice he makes when it's right, when it's real. He's not looking for people to validate him or fill any emptiness inside, because there isn't any. He's learned to fill those spaces with purpose, principles, and a vision for his life that needs no outside definition. He isn't desperate for anyone's presence because he's made peace with his own. He knows that there is strength in solitude, that sometimes the best way to know yourself is to be by yourself. When the need for constant company is set aside, something powerful happens. You create space to breathe, to think, to reflect. You begin to understand your own mind, your own motivations, your own soul. A man like this has done that. He spent time in those quiet moments discovering things about himself that would remain hidden if he were always surrounded by others. He's heard his own voice most clearly. He's learned what truly drives him, what he genuinely values. He's seen his own reflection without distortion, without external influence, and he's come to know himself in a way that few people ever will. This man isn't closed off, he's just not dependent. He's open to connection but selective about who he lets close. He understands that every relationship, every person he brings into his life, carries energy and influence, and he's cautious about that. He's not going to allow just anyone in because he respects himself enough to protect his peace. He isn't looking for shallow friendships or relationships built on convenience. He's not interested in people who only show up when times are good but disappear when life gets real. If he's going to invest in someone, it will be meaningful, genuine. He values depth over quantity. And if that means his circle is small, he's perfectly comfortable with that. Because he understands that his worth isn't defined by the number of people around him. It's not about having a crowd or a big group to validate his existence. His value is found in how he lives, in the principles he stands by, and the integrity he carries. He measures himself by the way he respects himself, the standards he sets, and the way he moves through life. He knows that those who truly matter, those worth his time, will recognize his worth without him having to prove it, without him needing to be anything other than himself. He's secure because he knows that, at the end of the day, he is all he truly has. Friends and companions may come and go. People drift in and out of our lives for countless reasons. But he understands that the only constant, the only person he's guaranteed to be with through every moment, is himself. So he's taken the time to get to know that person, to build a solid foundation within, to become someone he can rely on. He's not searching for others to fill that role because he has already become that for himself. Some might look at a man like this and think he's missing out. They might see his solitude and mistake it for loneliness, his quiet for emptiness. They may believe he's incomplete because he isn't constantly surrounded by people. But what they don't realize is that he's not missing anything. He's found fulfillment within himself, a sense of wholeness that requires no one else's input. He's found a contentment that can't be bought, can't be given, and can't be taken away by anyone but him. And that's a level of peace that most people never find because they're too busy searching for it outside themselves. This man's contentment isn't for show. He doesn't need to flaunt it or prove it to anyone because it's not for anyone else. It's his, cultivated through his own journey, his own struggles, his own triumphs. He's faced challenges that have taught him the value of standing on his own, of not needing anyone else's approval to feel worthy. Through that, he's built a sense of confidence, a quiet, unshakable strength that doesn't depend on others' opinions or presence. And because of that, he doesn't carry an air of arrogance. It's not that at all. It's simply that he's sure of himself. He knows who he is, what he stands for, what he wants in life, and he won't compromise that for anyone. He doesn't need to bend or mold himself to fit others' expectations. He doesn't chase people to prove himself or seek acceptance. He understands that those who truly value him will accept him as he is. And for those who don't, they're simply not meant to be in his life, and he's fine with that. This kind of man knows that true security, real strength, isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It's not about being the center of attention or needing everyone to know your name. It's about standing firm in who you are, even when no one else is watching. It's about walking a path that aligns with your values, even if it's a path you walk alone. He knows that real strength is quiet, steady, and consistent. It doesn't fade when the crowd disperses. It's built into who he is. So while others may see his solitude and misinterpret it, he knows his peace is worth more than friendships that demand he be anything other than himself. He's willing to walk alone, if that's what it takes to stay true to himself. He won't compromise his peace, his values, or his sense of self just to have people around. He'd rather walk in solitude than be surrounded by those who don't respect him, who don't understand him, who aren't genuine. And that is where his security comes from. It's not about having a big circle or a long list of friends. It's about having a solid sense of self and a clear understanding of his own worth. It's about knowing he's enough, that he doesn't need anyone else's presence to feel complete. He's comfortable in his own skin, at peace with his thoughts, content with his own company. That's a rare strength, a confidence that doesn't waver when others don't understand. People will always have opinions. They will always have something to say, especially about things they don't understand. But this man doesn't live for others' opinions. He's not here to make everyone comfortable. He's here to live his truth, to honor his path, to build a life that's meaningful to him. He knows that some people will never understand his choices, and that's okay. His life, his happiness, his peace, they don't rely on others' understanding. So if you see him walking alone, don't mistake it for a lack. Don't assume he's lonely or searching for something he's missing. He's already found it within himself. He's built a foundation of self-respect, integrity, and purpose. And that foundation is enough. Enough to carry him, to keep him strong, to keep him secure. He isn't waiting for anyone to complete him, because he's already whole. In the end, he knows that true fulfillment doesn't come from how many people know his name or how many friends stand beside him. It comes from living a life that's authentic, a life that's true to his values, a life that reflects who he truly is. And if that means he walks alone, so be it. He's more than prepared for that. He knows his strength, his worth, his peace. These are things he's built himself, things no one else can take away. That's real security, that's true contentment. And it's the kind of strength that lasts. There's a beauty in walking your own path, knowing you don't need anyone else to define or validate you. This man has learned that. He's found a freedom that's rare, a freedom that comes only when you understand your own worth. Most people go through life tied down by the need to be seen, acknowledged, and accepted. They constantly look outward, waiting for others to tell them they're good enough, waiting for the world to give them purpose. But not this man. He's not burdened by that need. He doesn't look to others for value because he already knows who he is, what he stands for, and what he's worth. That kind of freedom is powerful. It's the freedom to walk away from what doesn't serve him, to make choices that align with his values instead of others' expectations. He's not bound by what others think he should do or who they think he should be. He's free to be who he was meant to be. That's what real security looks like. It's not about having a crowd to cheer you on. It's about knowing that even if you're the only one clapping, you're enough. It's about knowing that your life has value, even if no one else recognizes it. This man is rare because he's comfortable with solitude. He's not afraid to spend time with himself, to sit in silence, to face his thoughts. Most people avoid being alone because they don't like what they find. They're scared to confront their insecurities, their fears, their doubts. But this man has walked through all of that. He's faced his demons, looked his fears in the eye, and come out stronger. He's realized that the strength he needs is already within him, and he's not afraid to rely on it. In a world filled with noise, distractions, and people telling you who to be, he's found peace in the quiet. He's found clarity in solitude. He's learned that to truly understand yourself, to grow, sometimes you need to step back from the crowd, to distance yourself from the voices, and listen to your own. He's found that peace doesn't come from having people around. It comes from knowing you can be alone and still be whole. That's a strength you have, because it takes real courage to face yourself, to accept yourself, to love yourself as you are. People might look at him and not understand. They might question why he doesn't have a big circle or why he's so comfortable walking his own path. They might wonder why he doesn't need what they do to feel validated. They might judge, label, or misunderstand him. But he's fine with that. He doesn't live to please others or measure his worth by their opinions. He knows not everyone will understand his choices, and he's made peace with that. He's not seeking approval, because he's already given it to himself. He's not waiting for the world to tell him he's enough. He's already decided he is. That's what makes him secure. It's not that he's cold, distant, or unapproachable. It's that he's grounded. Grounded in who he is, what he values, and the journey he's on. He doesn't need the noise, the constant validation, or the distractions. He's chosen a path that may be harder, lonelier, but truer to him. He's built a life on self-respect, self-awareness, genuine strength. He's not trying to impress anyone or be someone he's not. He's simply being himself and has found peace in that. When you look at a man like this, you're seeing someone who has found fulfillment within. He's not chasing something external or seeking someone to complete him. He's learned to stand on his own, to rely on himself, to be his source of strength. That is rare. It's a quiet strength, one that doesn't need to be announced or validated by others. It simply exists. This man knows true fulfillment isn't found in a crowd, a list of achievements, or a bank of followers. It comes from living authentically, from knowing that your path is meaningful, your life reflects your values, and you're true to yourself. He's committed to living a life he can be proud of, a life that even in the quiet moments feels right to him. He understands that not everyone will appreciate or understand his journey, and that's okay. He's not here to be understood by everyone. He's here to live his truth, honor in his path, and build a life that resonates with him. A life where when he looks back, he knows it was truly his. He knows he's the one who has to live with his choices, to look in the mirror and find peace with the person staring back. That's why he's secure, why he's grounded. He's built his life on a foundation of self-respect, integrity, and purpose. He doesn't need validation from anyone else. He doesn't need the world to tell him he's on the right track, because he already knows he is. He's listened to his own voice, followed his heart, and stands confident in his path. He's not out here looking for validation because he's found it within. When you find a man like that, you're looking at someone who is truly free. Free from the need for approval, free from the fear of judgment, free from the limitations others impose. He's free to be who he is. That's a freedom most people never find, live his life, because they're too busy trying to fit in, too worried about what others think. But this man, he's broken free from all of that. He's living a life that's true to him, authentic, and even in solitude, complete. It takes courage to choose this path, to live a life that doesn't hinge on others' opinions. It takes strength to look within, find your worth, and know you're enough. This man has done that work. He's found the courage, embraced the strength, and reached a place of true peace. He knows who he is and is okay with being that person, even if no one else understands. He's okay with walking alone. He chooses solitude over shallow connections, values himself over others' validation. So if you see him walking alone, don't assume he's lacking. Don't think he's missing out. He's found something most people spend their entire lives searching for. He's found himself. He's discovered a sense of worth that doesn't depend on anyone else, a peace that isn't reliant on another's presence. He's whole, complete, and living a life true to who he is. That's real freedom. That's true security. And that is a strength that cannot be shaken. In the end, he'll leave a legacy, not because of how many people knew him, but because of how he lived. He'll be remembered for his integrity, his strength, and his commitment to himself. He'll be known as a man who walked his own path, unafraid of solitude, who valued himself enough to remain true. That's the kind of legacy that endures. A man without friends isn't lacking. He's found something deeper, something lasting. He's found himself. And that, my friends, is powerful. Because when you're secure in who you are, when you've made peace with your own company, there's nothing you can't face. Nothing can shake you. You're grounded, steady, whole. That is what it means to be truly secure.